Hi, this is
Hi.
Lou and John, in case you're just clicking in the middle of these.
Yep.
This is our series called Bottled Wisdom. And actually we are now, we're responding to some of the comments that's gone. Thank you, it's been wonderful.
Thank you for all your comments. It's really nice. It's always nice to hear from you.
Yeah, it is. And it helps us to have a flavour of what the struggles are, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, we have our own ideas what the struggles are, but it's nice when you tell us what your struggles are, then we can actually address some of those. Because, we can forget. So, so thank you. It really helps us.
And take stock of our hair, because on Friday our hairdresser is allowed into our house for the first time for almost a year.
Yeah.
So we're going to be shorn, aren't we?
By the time you see this, yes, we will be. I'll be back to being bald again.
And looking 20 years younger.
Instead of, my Dickensian character that I'm sort of wandering about with here, Scrooge,
Oh.
Was it Scrooge?
Yes,
no.
Well, that'll do.
No.
Yes, I think he's usually...
No, it's
anyway.
Fagin, yeah.
Let's do Scrooge. No, Fagin. Anyway, we're moving on. Swiftly.
Yes, maybe we better get into this.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be short videos.
So...
Okay.
So these next two are kind of connected. We're going to be talking about blame dumping, scapegoating, but also childhood issues, because there's a ricochet between the two.
Yeah.
First of all, blame dumping, scapegoating. Did you do scapegoating? We're talking, if you're not used to these, John was a drinker, so tell me about you and blame dumping.
I didn't scapegoat. I just took out my sort of righteous anger on my wife. That's the way I saw it, because as I said before, if you'd had my wife, then you would have drank as well. That's the way I saw it at that time. Looking back on it now, no, she didn't deserve any of that. It was terrible, some of the things I said to her, but because somebody actually left a comment, and they were talking about they were the pixie on the end of the bed. Well, I think I mentioned that in one of the videos. That was my wife. She sat there and she sort of said, she was my memory. She told me all the things that I'd done. And I used to get really angry at that because I didn't want to know. I really didn't want to know. So yes, I got really angry, and when I got angry, I sort of snapped back at her, and I had a wicked tongue. And as you know, I can actually be quite sharp and sometimes.
Well, we're both I think quite witty and observational. But when that comes out of that anger, then that becomes nasty.
It came out in a nasty form. And it was vitriol. Sometimes it was coming out. And I look back at it now and I think, ooh, God, I really wish. I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah. So I think what happens then is there's authentic pain and anger, which is justified because of the behaviour of the alcoholic.
Yeah.
But then comes back, it ricochets back onto the person that's protesting in a nastier, And I just remember that, and it felt awful because I needed more than anything a hearing as to what had happened, and actually what I got was accusation. Very painful moment. And indignation very high.
I think most of my anger that came out wasn't at my wife. I kind of targeted her because, well, let's face it, there was only the two of us in the house, so you had to target somebody.
Yeah.
So if there had been a dog, probably it would have got kicked as well, So it came out, but the real anger was at me. The real anger was at my situation. The real anger was at my powerlessness. Because I was aware of what was going on, I wasn't unaware of it. I tried to ignore it, but I wasn't unaware of it. It kept raising its ugly head, and then my wife sort of brought it up as well. So there it was, and I was angry at my situation.
Okay, so actually you're projecting your awful shame and guilt onto your partner. That's what was going on.
That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah. And I think that's where we use the phrase scapegoating, because you become the scapegoat. I think also my husband, I was very aware, because I knew what he'd been through, that anger was really as much to do with what he'd been through as me. And I was just aware that, again, I was the focus for that. So we become the kind of, if you like, the target for present and past issues, and it all comes out. And I think when you're drinking too, the inhibitions, they go down, don't they?
Oh,
Goes
absolutely,
down, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I said things in alcohol that I would never have said otherwise, you know. I mean, in fact, that's one of the reasons why people drink sometimes. Dutch courage, you know.
Yes.
The ability to say things that they wouldn't normally say. You know, they think they're being assertive.
Yeah.
They're not. You know, they're just very often being obnoxious. You know, the things that people say at the Christmas party and you know, in the house, not the house, at work. You know, bosses very often sort of sneak out early just because they know what's going to happen. You know, somebody's going to come up and say something.
Yes.
And so it gives that Dutch courage. What it does is it kind of takes down the filters. You know, it switches off the filters, and what's in here just comes out. You know, and normally we would filter what we say. You know, if we love somebody, we wouldn't want to hurt them. But when the filter's gone, then it just spews out.
Yes.
And as I say, with me, it came out like vitriol.
And just be aware of this. You know, if I'm, you know, me and John rarely argue, but you know, when you're in the height of your anger, things come into your mind, but you reject them. You know, there is a filter that goes on, and if you love someone, you think it, but you don't say it, do you? You drop it.
There is a censor in there.
Yeah.
You know, it sort of goes, oh no, you don't say that. You know, things are bad, but if you say that, you know, it's going to be an awful lot worse.
Yes. And when the drink's there.
But when the drink's there, that sensor, the sensor's going to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and out it comes.
Very, very painful. Though we're talking about it and describing it, it is really painful. If you go through this, and I'm sure you do, to be accused and to be made out to be the villain in the situation with what we put up with as partners is a very, very painful thing. Now, second thing though, is don't pick it up. Don't pick it up. Now, where I was vulnerable is that sometimes I did let rip. Sometimes there was a bit that came out of me in my anger and frustration and pain that I didn't particularly like.
Well, that's actually part of the problem, you know, and this is where the vicious circle comes in, you know, because, you know, you feel really angry, so you spew this stuff out, and then, you know, you get sober and you remember it.
Yeah.
And you feel ashamed about it, you know, and then you get drunk because you can't cope with it, and then it comes out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's if they're looking for perpetual motion, that's almost it. You know, this wheel just keeps turning like a hamster wheel all the time. You know.
So step out of that. You know, if you're a partner or if you're a family member, don't buy into.
Yeah, don't personalise it.
No, don't personalise it.
I know it feels intensely personal. I mean, it really does feel intensely personal. But the real issue that the drinker is dealing with here is anger at himself or herself.
Yeah. So be aware that you are not the guilty party, but again, be real. Just say, I don't express my emotions very well sometimes, but I'm not the one with the problem here. I'm the one living with the problem. And you need to say this to yourself very, very firmly. Otherwise, you find that they feel a bit better for blame dumping, and you go off feeling even worse. So resist that. It's not your blame. So don't pick it up, and don't let it land in the bit where you are learning to control your emotions in a slightly more healthy way, because you'll be on a journey with that. So you're not to blame, you are not the scapegoat. Don't pick it up. If you do, remember you can put it down again, because you know, steps to change often is you recognize the pattern, and for a while you don't stop the pattern, but you're aware that it's happening, and then the change begins to happen. So acknowledgement of the problem is the first step, and then you'll find one day you think, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not going to pick that up. All of it's a journey.
To put it very simply, you know, it was just my wife and myself in the house. Somebody was to blame, and clearly it wasn't me. So by default, it must be her, you know. And I actually said that, you know. If it wasn't for her, I would drink like a gentleman. And then she left, and I drank like a gentleman for all of half an hour. And then I went right down, right down. You know, but in my head, it must be her, because it couldn't possibly be me.
And you really, really bought into that?
Absolutely. I even found myself walking into the pub and saying the immortal words, "My wife doesn't understand me."
Yeah.
And as I said them, I thought, oh God, I've become a cliche.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes. Yeah.
I hated that it even come out of my mouth. And I look back on some of the things I said, some of the things I thought, and I think, oh dear, did I really? Did I really? And I would love to say that it was all about alcohol, but it wasn't. It wasn't all alcohol. It was part of how I was at that time.
Sure.
It was part of the thing that made me ripe for alcohol, and I had to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And that had to change.
So that's the next video. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining us. You know, if you're being scapegoated, just end this video with us and find yourself just even, you know, think of a rucksack, which is blame, and just think, right, I'm taking that off and dump it on the floor, because you've got enough to deal with without carrying false blame.
Exactly.
Come and join us again. Take care. Bye.
Bye.